The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com.
There's a new bar in town. Welcome to the Turnbuckle Arms, where the banter flows like wine and the topics are as fresh as an ice-cold pint. So pull up a chair, grab yourself a glass, and welcome your hosts, The Brood!
Hi everybody, this is the Turnbuckle Arms. We're here for a Swift Half. If you don't know what a Swift Half is, it is just only half an hour, and the idea is it's just going to be one topic, and as I said, there's just a couple of us. It's myself and it's Nick, who's new to our team, and he's also got his own podcast, and the name of that, Nick, is
Work the Left Side. Next month, so keep your eyes peeled. Debut show coming up.
Fantastic. And this particular topic, Nick has actually come up with himself, so I'm going to let him explain it to us. Go for it.
Well, obviously, any wrestling fan will have seen in the news last few days the Undertakers comments about the current roster, the current product being soft. Goldberg has also seconded that today as well. So
yeah,
veterans that seem to be expressing the same opinion. I mean, Foley came out and totally disregarded everything they said and kind of backed the current roster. So, well, Foley's just a lovable guy, so you know he's always going to say good things. But yeah, I kind of want to discuss. I've got the whole thoughts thing going on, like Taker can't. You know, yeah, is he right? Is he wrong? You know, he's going on about this whole. You know, back in the day when he got into the business, you know, they had guns and knives and bags. Things got sorted by men. You know, they were manly men. Whereas, you know, the guys today are just more bothered about playing video games. It just seems ludicrous to me. Absolutely. I kind of get it's like the old school logic, but, you know, at times change, things progress. It doesn't mean they're soft. I mean, the bumps are taken exactly the same. It still hurts. You know, they're still doing the same job. If anything, I think they're doing more impactful moves now.
Yeah. So I was wondering if, I know you said it was about the product, and he did say, have you seen the Joe Rogan podcast? Yeah, I watched it. And I mean, the thing is for saying it was nearly 3 hours long, I think there was only 2 bits I came away with and thought, oh, that was interesting. The majority of it just talks about rubbish. But he did seem to imply he took steroids at one time. That was the one thing I thought, oh, that's interesting. But then he's never had a physique, which seemed to suggest that. But then he mentioned that. Now, I wondered, based on what you were saying also, because then he refers to the guys in the back. Do you really think he was referring to the product or the actual wrestlers themselves?
I think he started off with it saying the product, but then the more he thought about it, like on the spot when he was talking about it, then it kind of went to the guys in the back, obviously addressing the playing the video games and you know and things like that. And yeah, I just think it seems really off. No, I mean, Taker's one of those guys that you just a lot of obviously what he says is kind of gospel because you know he's got a reputation, he's been in the business for that long. You know, I mean, the dude was like a leader in the locker room for like say 24, 26 years. You know, give him a couple to get that status, and yeah, just to hear him kind of bury the product in the current roster, put me back a little bit.
It was interesting. I mean, Xavier Woods has come out about it, hasn't he? I don't know if you've seen. Yeah, he was quite upset about it, and I mean, obviously, because that's his. I always thought at some point he'll just leave wrestling and just go full into gaming. That seems to be where his next thing is. Yeah, and so he took that quite to heart. It just seems a really I forgot the phrase you used, but it just sounds dumb. That's all it did. It sounded like a weird kind of thing to complain about. But it's. I mean, there's so many different factors in. The Undertaker's the longest person to probably keep kayfabe, and so a lot of this stuff we might have heard him say 20 years ago if he'd have broke kayfabe when everybody did, when Vince McMahon kind of said to the screen, "We're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to pretend." if he did that then, some of these things he might be saying, you'd go, oh, okay, then fine. But now he's saying this, he sounds like he's really not in the. It just seems really out of touch. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Like an angry old man shouting at the cloud, that kind of thing.
And it seems really strange. And I mean, also that you watch all these different shoot videos. There is a lot of times where wrestlers seem to want to say who is legitimately tough, but that's kind of old. If you don't watch, you're watching the new shoot videos or something. Nobody cares about if a wrestler can really beat somebody up. I mean, other than Brock Lesnar and Riddle, who actually have MMA backgrounds, it's not really a priority to think about. I really am tougher than you. Like what?
I appreciate that they're all in the same business. It's not a legitimate competition.
No,
so it doesn't really matter who's the guy kind of thing. It's not like like say back in the day, you had your hardcore Hollies, you had all those kind of that thought they were a boss backstage kind of thing. They're grown-ups, they're adults.
Yeah,
they appreciate and hopefully respect each other to a certain point. They don't want to be the toughest guy back there. They just kind of want to go do the job. Yeah, put on a damn good show.
And it's just such a weird thing about it. And then, the irony of Goldberg being a person to complain about people who complain too much, and he has the thinnest skin, it seems, for a guy who looks like him, because Riddle upset him so much. Riddle was probably a bit more jabbing the bear than you would think sometimes, but I mean, he said he was a crap worker, which we've kind of always known that Goldberg isn't the best. But he really upset him, didn't he? And when they met each other at WrestleMania, you could tell that this wasn't a character thing. He was upset at what he was saying, and then
he got merged, didn't he? It was kind of like, no, you've literally highlighted my weaknesses, which makes me feel less tough. Old school mentality.
Goldberg's also he had a fallout with Jericho twice, didn't he? I mean, he was upset about the character being funny. He didn't like that in WCW. Then in real life, they supposedly had a fight, which Goldberg was still believing his own hype, and Jericho beat him up.
Just kept him in a headlock. Pretty much tap out kind of thing. Just
pinned him down. You're like, well, but again, it's like that. I mean, Jericho still kind of flirts in between of those two. I think he's one of the few who's probably a little bit, because his whole habits was going out and drinking, and then he mentioned it in A&W. He says people don't tend to do that anymore. Not that he was complaining about it, but he was still in that kind of old attitude of that's the normal way you socialize. That's how you chill out. And now I've just finished reading the Young Bucks book.
Oh, okay.
It's very good. I recommend it. But I didn't know that they came from a Christian family, so they've never drank, and that they stopped having They had very few friends when they were coming up in the wrestling business because they had no one to socialize with, because that was the normal routine. They were like, well, I don't drink. I'm not going to do this. And so what's really funny is then that's how they became friends with Daniel Bryan, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, because none of them drank either.
Okay.
And they became their own kind of, straight edge kind of clique, really, I guess you could kind of say. And I mean, that is the new wave of wrestlers who actually, that's not how I socialize. I play computer games, I watch I read comic books, these type of kind of semi-geeky things, but wrestling always was geeky, but that was where the line is.
Yeah. You look at the association between, you guarantee 87% of wrestling fans will probably be into comic books. They'll probably be into or video games. It's an area that lends itself very much into comic books, into that kind of realm. It's only makes sense now that the fans or a lot of the wrestlers now are those guys that are into comic books, that are into video games, because they would have been the kids that were watching it, in the 90s or the 90s. Mm-hmm. So it's just that mentality, man. It bugs me.
And then the idea of bragging about it, which what was his gang called? The Bone Skull Mafia?
Yes, Is
that really what it was called? Is that the proper name? Bone Skull.
Because I can remember pictures around. I think it was around about WrestleMania time, wasn't it, before everything kicked off? There's a lot of photos of them all backstage, like in a bar and stuff, saying, "Oh, everybody's back together." Before Taker's retirement show.
Yes.
That was it. So, doing this Bone School Mafia.
Yeah, Bone School, yeah, it's something like that. But the point being is that so you've got, I mean, Yokozuna, sadly, he passed away, and all these guys that, it's not as many people who were part of these old crews that were real men, because the lifestyle meant that they ended up not being around anymore, and it seems a real strange thing as well. I heard stories of, for one, Rick Rude was meant to be an absolute badass, and so much so that Hulk Hogan didn't want to work with him at WCW. He was too afraid of him. That's actually the phrase, that he was too afraid of what he'd do to him. Macho Man later threatened Hogan multiple times over with, he had a gun and stuff like this. But all these people, for one, aren't with us now, and we're really unhinged. And it seems a really strange thing to be seeking that as a pride.
Yeah. Or missing that as a lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
Like, you want the current crop of guys to have that lifestyle choice, and then probably not live past their 40s.
Yeah.
Majority of the guys from that era.
Yeah.
Have died prematurely due to alcohol or drug abuse.
Yeah.
It just seems
so weird. Such a weird thing to complain about. And then and like you were, if we link it to the product, having watched some of Cesaro versus Daniel Bryan, which happened last week, there is no way you could call that match soft in any way, shape, or form. Nope. They battered the heck out of each other. Or he's talking about.
Look at those matches.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you break somebody's jaw.
Soft.
Yeah. And I don't know. I can't see what he, and Goldberg saying they need to toughen up. I think that was a phrase he said. They're too soft skinned, and there was all these comments about being snowflakes and this kind of a line.
I hate that terminology. What else?
It is. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because what does it mean? What are you complaining about?
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure.
Have you seen Reigns' rebuttal today?
Roman Reigns
has done a rebuttal. I think he did it.
Go on then. No.
It's illustrated. It's such. Look it up afterwards. Obviously, I'll mention a few bits. But yeah, if you just Google it, it's on there. But yeah, he's basically shooting back on Taker, defending the product, defending the guys. He's sort of saying, look, I know Taker's a good guy. I don't think he meant it in this way, but you know what I mean. I would rather guys be playing video games in the back than cracking a bag of stuff open.
Yeah. Wow. Good. Whoa.
Yeah, that's Reigns said that, and at the end he just kind of cut the interview, sort of saying like, it's funny though because he's just a retired guy now that's trying to sound gangster. He's in line of the shoot, and I was just like, okay, fair enough. So yeah, Reigns has kind of stepped up and to try and defend.
Interesting. I wonder if he's trying.
It's a good interview.
Go right. I wonder if he's leaving the door open for a rematch. Maybe that's the other thing.
Very much possibly, but he talks to my guys, like sort of saying, yeah, they play video games. As long as the guys don't take away from the things that they should be doing, like if they're running lines, if they're going through match organisation, things like that. As long as they're still doing that, and they've got like an hour to kill or something, yeah, by all means, play a video game or something. It's better than the alternative. It's like saying the New Day do it all the time, but they're uber talented. They can turn it on like that when needs be. It doesn't matter. He says it's not an issue as long as it doesn't cut into work, basically. As long as you're not skiving doing what you're meant to be doing and playing video games, it's not an issue.
It seems a really weird thing to complain about that. But it's that the mix of the old school attitude. There's two ones. I'll tell you the lamest one I'm actually listening to. I have audiobooks. That's how I tend to listen to books. I'm listening to the Bellas. Don't judge me on this. They just talked about not shaking hands when you come in the back. And the respect thing, you have to shake the hand of all the wrestlers. Now, I just read the Young Bucks one, which I've just said. Now, I didn't know this happened, but the Young Bucks forgot to shake the hand of Booker T at one point. This happened just when they did a tryout. And Booker T seems to have unintentionally been the reason why they didn't get hired, because he said, well, they didn't shake my hand. And it went around Twitter and all this, and people made a real big thing of it and said they had no respect. I mean, that was when they came out with the T-shirt of "We don't do hands" or something like this. We don't shake hands. That's how they came back and made a thing of it. It was quite funny, but that whole attitude of not unearned respect, but just this weird kind of mystique that came with wrestling. I think that's the thing that's changed. And I was wondering about this. I think that's kayfabe is part of it. Moving away as much as they can from the old carny kind of attitude. I think all these things are all part of it, and I think you're right about the Undertaker. I mean, I don't know. I don't think he was acting when he said it, though, because he seemed incredibly casual, and I think that is who he is. But I just don't think he really thought through as to. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he was getting at, really. Rogan said to him, "Do you think you're going to get in trouble for this?" And he said, "Yeah,
it's what it is. They've got to hear it or something like that." I think again, he's an old guy. He kind of got angry about it. Take his take. I'm not besmirching him. It's like everybody else. They're entitled to an opinion. It gives us something to talk about anyway. And that's where the stuff like that's good. People are going to disagree on stuff, but we talk about it. We'll break it down. And in this case, personally, I'm going to say the dude's wrong.
Yeah.
Don't buy a second for what he's saying.
And I mean, yeah. So there's no way on earth I can see him arguing that it's actually the product in the ring. And so then, and if it's to do with Attitude Era, that was the other thing they brought up, wasn't it? Attitude Era, sexual storylines, that type of thing. Well, as long as they're in the PG era, WWE, as long as they stick with PG, then they're always going to be this kind of a tamer version. That's why they swear on AEW and they say the S word, and so that type of thing is where they get a little bit more freedom, because I think they're 14, they're 15 basically. So as long as that doesn't change, then what you're going to see is really physical wrestling. Drew McIntyre's style is physical. I mean, his match with Roman Reigns at Survivor Series, it's top stuff. And I hadn't really thought that. It wasn't that long before then. Roman had fought Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania, and I thought it was the dullest match. It's so weird to see two guys who, when they tweaked their character, didn't they? And it was such a good match.
Because you invested in it this time. You like the characters. You care about both of them. They've done such a good job. That match for me was like, it was a match for the year contender last year.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it, and it was anything but soft. You blame the roster, the talent. If the current product is coming across as soft, it's what the company want now. So that's on the company. That's not on the talent. Don't have a go at the guys and girls that go out and perform.
Yeah,
they're only doing what they're allowed to do.
Yeah, Sorry, dude, go on. No, they're kind of handcuffed, really. I guess that's the, and that's where it seems unfair, because Undertaker. I mean, there's multiple parts of it. Undertaker, for one, had such a status anyway that he could do what he wants. I mean, supposedly one of the Shawn Michaels matches with the Undertaker went over 10 minutes or something. There's no way some of these other wrestlers now could choose to make their match 10 minutes longer. I mean, they're not going to get away with that, but. Because of who he is, he can do different things that other people can do, and so to make these kind of claims always feels a bit unfair. But I mean, I think the physicalness of the wrestling's definitely changed. I mean, and then when you look at so even in WWE, but even in WWE, it gets more. I mean, NXT is a more physical style than the main roster anyway, even though Daniel Bryan, Cesaro do wrestle much more. Sheamus do wrestle really physical, and you can tell. But I don't know. It's a strange one. I wonder if it's where it's going though. That's the thing now. And so, like Goldberg, I didn't know that, because you posted his contract, didn't you?
Like on the website was, but there's a whole long list of contracts, and I think he's got he's got a couple more years left on it, but 2 matches a year.
He has to wrestle 2 matches. I just thought it was when they felt like it, but the idea that he's now someone they always expect to come back, and you think, I mean, yeah, I mean, they haven't now. I don't know if you noticed. I wonder if he did it off the cuff, and so that's why they cut it. But Drew McIntyre's comment about fighting you would be like fighting my dad.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was like, you can't say that again because we don't want to highlight that he is probably old enough to be your dad. And his last match is such a weird one because his matches aren't that good as when he fought Brock. Brock did it brilliantly, carried him to a very simple match, and that was good. And every time you go back to it, it's been not half as good as it was. And I mean, and we still got that stinker where he almost crippled the Undertaker. It just seems very, very strange. But yeah,
that was another thing in the Reigns interview. Obviously, he was bigging up Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
I take on board his point of view. I respect Taker no end. Mark's a great guy. And then the guy must have asked, Goldberg's backed up what Taker said. And Reigns was like, yeah, Goldberg's just Goldberg, isn't he? And then just totally passed it and just went straight on. It's like, okay, fair enough. Totally defended him, showed nothing but respect for Taker. And it was just like, yeah, fudge Goldberg. And just went on to the next thing. So I was like, okay.
Good. Other than going over some stuff again, have you got any more thoughts about this one, or is that
No, I just kind of needed to get it off my chest more than anything. It's one of the reasons I wanted to sort of I suggested just having a quick out it really, because it just irks me, man. I just hate this the old school mentality where the things that are as they are now are nowhere near as good as they used to be, or if you don't agree with, or you don't do X, Y, and Z anymore, then you're soft or you're a snowflake, or it's kind of like it's the mentality that bugs me. And when Taker came out, it kind of got my back up a bit. Just as a fan, just for a mindset point of view, it's kind of like saying they're old, they're allowed to be racist or something. It's like no, it might be acceptable back in the day, but it isn't now. Across the field for so many things, not just obviously racism, but people change, people evolve, mindsets change. I just had to kind of.
No, it's good. Because I hate the Attitude Era being called the best era in the world, and again and again. I mean, Austin was the best. The Rock was just as good, but we've moved past that, and I'm okay with it. I don't miss them. And I feel like that's what I'm being told, that I should miss them and I should think that these other guys aren't as good. And because of that, then when they had the Legends Raw again, I was just like, I can't be bothered with another Legends, because you're just doing it because the ratings aren't good. And you think, the casual fan, which is so rude that actually you don't want my business, you want somebody else's business again and again and again. I'm in some kind of a volatile relationship where I'm actually not appreciated. I don't know why I do this to myself. But yeah, so I mean, that's it. And then because Hogan was at that one, which made me laugh, and Hogan had supposedly said he didn't understand why people were off with him. And that he says, people feel like I'm going to try and steal their spot. They went, no, you're a racist. They don't like you.
It's totally against character. That you're never going to do that. Wow.
But yeah, so I mean, I could go on ages on the Attitude Era and why I feel like the new stock of wrestlers don't get the same treatment, other than being told again and again and again that they're not good enough. That's always one part of it. But there's so many different things that seem unfair in the way that they're handled as to why they're not the same stars. They might you could probably count. I think Roman Reigns is probably one of the few who would be recognised by Joe Blogs on the street. But I really think there isn't.
It's because they don't want anyone bigger than the company anymore.
Yeah,
they don't want another Cena. They don't want another Austin. They don't want another Hogan or another Rock. They don't want a standout star.
Yeah,
it's just ludicrous
because they leave. because they leave and because they can go make more money. I mean, The Rock now, the idea of how much money he is worth compared to them, it's they want people to need them, and they don't want it the other way around, and all that type of stuff. And so when you hear people kept saying, well, that's why we were successful, because you're like, no, that's not entirely why you were successful, and you weren't told again and again that the people before you were better, and they weren't being brought back again, and that's there's a whole unfairness that happens to this group of wrestlers.
That's a good point. I've never thought about that, really. Yeah, you never got like a Legends thing during the Attitude Era, did you? You never got like those guys coming back in. The only thing I can think of would be like the Legends Battle Royal at WrestleMania.
The gimmick Battle Royal. But it was because they looked stupid. That's why that one was on, because they were making fun of the silliness of the campiness of way the characters were. But no point were they saying, gosh, these guys were heroes back in the day, weren't they? They were so good. They're better than the current guys. No.
Yeah, it makes no sense, but it's a double-edged sword with I think that could easily be another topic down the line at some point, to be fair. Legends, good or bad. Will there be any legends to use in 10 years' time? If they, if they want to do this, if they still got this mentality in 10 years, they're not building any legends now to use, in the future. So it's a cool subject because it's got so many areas to talk about.
Yeah, I think what we'll do now is we're going to put a pin in this one, because we could end up turning our Swift half into a full session, and we will hold off on doing so. Nick, thank you very much for talking to me, and it's been wonderful. I'll just sign off here and say thank you to all those who follow us on Twitter and on Facebook, and we'll have new episodes coming out, and we're trying to expand more, thanks to Jonas as well, because he's done wonderful in how he's been absolutely just killing it, and his group is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we really appreciate him giving us this opportunity. So thanks very much, everybody, and we'll say goodbye.